So in this video we'll demonstrate how to use the automatic mandible and hyoid tracking. In this image the hyoid is right on the left hand side of the display. It's coming and going in the display, so it's not going to track very well, and indeed there's not a good reason for tracking it since we only see it part of the time. But on the right hand side of the display you can see a shadow corresponding to the mandible, so we'll try to track that. So what we want to do is go to the Splines tab, a new spline, and then check mandible. And you can see a little orange M has appeared. We can click on that and drag that down to roughly where we think the mandible, the base of the mandible should be. So we're looking to track the base of the shadow, whether that's a hyoid shadow or a mandible shadow. Now that we've selected that, we can add some keyframes. So if I select this window, I'm going to do Control A and then add mandible keyframes. Okay, so we've got a set of keyframes now. Now we want to move to the Fit Hyoid tab. We've got two sub-tabs here, one for the hyoid and one for the mandible. In this case we want to track the mandible, so we'll select that one. Now you've got to set limits as to where it's going to look for tracking, and the tighter these limits are, the better the tracking performance. So we're going to set the range, that's the width or the angle around this fan display, of about 76 to 98% or 99%. So that's from about here to the end, to the right hand side of this display. In terms of height, for the ultrasonic data, the range goes from the bottom of the visible ultrasound data to the top. So we're going to track from about 20%, which is roughly about here, to about 40%, which is probably roughly about here. So this gives us a sort of region in this sort of region where we can look for the mandible shadow. In order to track, we need to select the mandible tab here, and then we just click process this recording. It takes a little time. Now as we move through the recording, we can see the mandible, the M symbol moving around with that hyoid, with that mandible shadow. Okay, so now that we have this mandible shadow, we know that anything to the right of that mandible shadow is not a genuine edge because it's within that shadow. So we can set all of the spline points to 0 confidence beyond that mandible point. In fact, we can enhance how many points are set to 0. If we set it at 5 degrees, then 5 degrees to the left of this M will also be set to 0. So if we click crop with mandible, we get an error, and this error indicates that we must actually, in this circumstance, select the fan spline that's going to be trimmed. So if we check out of that, and we want to trim the tongue spline here. So we want to trim the tongue spline. We've still got this mandible selected here, so we'll crop the tongue with mandible. And there you can see that it shortened from over here to about there. So if we move through, we can see that it's trimmed. There we go.